Dad's silent revenge.
The text came in at 9:47 p.m. while I was sitting in my workshop, trying to fix Tyler's broken bike chain. Don't forget to take the trash out tomorrow, Harold. Neighbors complained about the smell yesterday. That's it. No please, no thank you. Just another order from Stephanie, like I was some hired hand she could boss around. I'm Harold Patterson, 59 years old, and I'd been living this nightmare for 3 years. But that night, something inside me finally snapped. See, while I was getting that charming little message, my son Bradley and his wife Stephanie were at Morton's Steakhouse celebrating her big promotion to marketing director. The whole extended family was there, her parents, her sister, even Bradley's cousins from Toledo. Everyone except me, the guy who made their fancy suburban lifestyle possible. I'd been staring at Instagram for the past hour, watching their celebration unfold in real time. There was Stephanie in her red dress, holding up a glass of champagne that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. There was Bradley, grinning like an idiot in the shirt I'd ironed that morning. And there were my grandkids, Tyler and Ashley, stuffing their faces with 40-dollar steaks while I heated up leftover meatloaf in the microwave. The caption read, "Celebrating my queen's success. Here's to women who never give up. Blessed family night, right? You want to know how I ended up in this mess? It started 3 years ago when I buried my wife, Linda. We'd been married 33 years when the cancer took her. She fought it for 8 months, and I was by her side through every chemo session, every sleepless night, every moment of hope and despair. The doctors said it was aggressive, but Linda was tougher than old leather. Right up until the end, she was making me promise to take care of myself, to not let anyone push me around. Harold, she said in those final weeks, her voice barely a whisper, you're too good to people sometimes. Don't let them mistake kindness for weakness. I should have listened to her after the funeral. I was lost in that big ranch house we'd built together. Every corner held 30 years of memories. The kitchen where Linda baked her famous apple pies. The living room where we'd watched Bradley grow up, where we'd celebrated every Christmas and birthday. The master bedroom where she took her last breath holding my hand and telling me she loved me. The silence was killing me. I'd wake up reaching for her side of the bed. I'd make coffee for 2 out of habit. I'd catch myself buying her favorite yogurt at the grocery store. The grief counselor said it was normal, but normal felt like drowning in slow motion. That's when Bradley started coming around more often. He'd always been a good son, but after Linda died, he seemed genuinely concerned about me rattling around in that big house alone. His visits increased from once a week to 3 times a week. He'd bring Tyler and Ashley, and for a few hours, the house would feel alive again. Dad, you sure you're okay out here by yourself? He'd ask, watching me navigate the 2 quiet rooms. It's a lot of space for one person. I knew what he was getting at, but I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. Bradley had been working as an electrician for Midwest Power for 12 years. Good, steady work, union benefits, but the pay wasn't spectacular, especially not with 2 kids and a wife who had expensive tastes. Stephanie worked in marketing for a local company, pulling down decent money, but they were still struggling to get ahead. They'd been renting a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the city, and Tyler was sharing a room with his little sister. Not ideal for a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Bradley had been talking about buying a house for years, but every time they saved up a little money, something would happen. Car repairs, medical bills, Tyler needing new clothes because he'd grown another 3 inches. The conversation I'd been dreading came on a cold February evening about 6 months after Linda's funeral. Bradley showed up with Stephanie and the kids, but there was something different about their energy. They seemed nervous, excited, like they had something important to discuss. Dad, Bradley started after we'd gotten the kids settled with a movie in the living room. We found a house. I knew where this was going, but I let him talk. It's perfect, Dad. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, great school district. The kids would have their own rooms and there'd be space for. He paused, glancing at Stephanie. There'd be room for family. Stephanie jumped in, her voice honey-sweet in a way that should have set off alarm bells. We were thinking, Harold, that this could be perfect for all of us. You wouldn't have to be alone in this big house anymore and we could all be together, like a real family. The house cost $340,000. They had $15,000 saved up and could qualify for a mortgage, but they needed $78,000 for the down payment to avoid PMI and get a decent rate. In 2021, with the market the way it was, 20% down was the difference between getting a house and getting priced out entirely. If you sold this place, Bradley said quietly, you could help us with the down payment and have money left over to get settled wherever you want to live. But that wasn't really the plan, was it? The real plan was for me to come with them, to sell my ranch and move into their new house where I could help with the kids and contribute to the household expenses. It made financial sense, they explained. I'd have family around, they'd have built-in childcare and help with the mortgage, and everyone would benefit. Linda's voice echoed in my head. Don't let them mistake kindness for weakness. But sitting in that empty house, surrounded by memories of a life that felt over, the idea of being useful again, of being needed, was too tempting to resist. I sold the ranch for $125,000. After paying off the small remaining mortgage and covering closing costs, I walked away with $168,000. It was everything Linda and I had built over 30 years of marriage. Every overtime hour I'd worked, every weekend project, every sacrifice we'd made to build equity, all of it reduced to a number on a bank check. I handed Bradley $78,000 without hesitation. The look of relief on his face was worth it, I told myself. The excitement in Tyler and Ashley's voices when they talked about their new rooms made it feel right. Even Stephanie seemed genuinely grateful, giving me a hug and saying, "Thank you, Harold. This means everything to us." The house they bought was nice, a colonial in Westfield Estates, one of those developments that used to be farmland but got turned into suburbia when the city expanded. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a 2-car garage, and a basement I could convert into a workshop. The neighborhood was quiet, safe, full of young families with kids riding bikes and playing in front yards. "This room could be yours, Dad," Bradley said, showing me the guest bedroom on the first floor. It had a window overlooking the backyard and was right next to a half bath, and you could set up your tools in the basement. It's perfect. It seemed perfect. For about 6 months, the problems started small. Little things that I told myself were just adjustments to living together. Stephanie would rearrange things I'd put in the kitchen cabinets. She'd move my reading chair in the living room because it didn't flow with her decorating vision. She'd ask me to babysit Tyler and Ashley when she and Bradley went out, like I was the hired help instead of their grandfather. But I was grateful to have purpose again. I'd get up at 5:30 and make coffee the way Bradley liked it, strong with a dash of cinnamon, just like his mother used to make. I'd get the kids ready for school, pack their lunches, and walk them to the bus stop. Stephanie would rush through in her business clothes, grab her coffee, and head out with barely a word. Bradley would leave a half hour later for his electrical jobs, sometimes remembering to say thanks, sometimes not. The workshop in the basement became my sanctuary. I'd spend hours down there, organizing my tools, working on small projects, fixing things around the house. It was the one space that felt like mine, until it didn't. "Harold, we need to store the Christmas decorations somewhere," Stephanie announced one December morning. "The basement has all that extra space." Before I could object, boxes started appearing on my workbench. Holiday lights, artificial trees, bins of ornaments and seasonal decorations. Then came the exercise equipment she never used, clothes she was saving for when she lost 10 pounds, and boxes of college textbooks she couldn't bear to throw away. My workshop gradually became a storage unit with tools squeezed into whatever corner space remained. When I mentioned it to Bradley, he shrugged and said, "Come on, Dad, it's just temporary. Besides, we all have to make sacrifices when we're sharing space." Sharing space. That's what they called it when they took over what was supposed to be mine. The financial reality was becoming clear too. Bradley's electrician's salary covered about $1,100 of the $1,800 monthly mortgage payment. The rest came from me, $700 every month from my Social Security and Linda's pension fund, plus utilities, plus groceries, plus repairs and improvements when things broke or needed updating. I kept track of every penny in a composition notebook I'd bought at the drugstore, not because I planned to ask for it back, but because 35 years in construction had taught me to document everything. The new water heater when the old one died, $1,200. The fence repair after the neighbor's tree fell, $800. The driveway resurfacing that Stephanie said was essential for the property value, $2,400. In 18 months, I'd contributed $47,000 beyond the original down payment. But somehow I was still treated like a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. The worst part wasn't the money, it was becoming invisible in my own life. Stephanie stopped including me in family decisions. When they planned vacation trips, I wasn't invited. Someone needed to watch the house, water the plants, collect the mail. When they hosted dinner parties, I was expected to help cook and serve, then disappear when the guests arrived. Harold's so helpful, I heard Stephanie tell her friend Monica one evening while I was cleaning up dishes in the kitchen. It's like having live-in help, but better because he actually cares about the kids. Live-in help. That's what I'd become. Tyler and Ashley were the bright spots. Tyler was 8 now, old enough to throw a baseball properly, and we'd spend summer evenings playing catch in the backyard. Ashley was 5 and had appointed herself my official helper for any project I was working on. She'd hand me tools, ask a million questions, and make everything take twice as long and be 10 times more fun. But even that started to change. Stephanie began monitoring my interactions with the kids more closely, correcting my methods, inserting herself into our activities. "Tyler, Grandpa's throwing the ball too hard. You could get hurt." "Ashley, don't bother Grandpa when he's working. Can't you see he's busy? Kids, come inside. It's time for dinner, and Grandpa needs to clean up his mess in the garage." Gradually, I was being edged out of their lives too. The man who'd helped change their diapers, who'd been there for every birthday and Christmas, was becoming a stranger in their own house. The house I'd paid for. By year 2, I wasn't Harold anymore. I was just Grandpa to the kids and nothing at all to Stephanie. She'd give me instructions like I was the hired help. "The gutters need cleaning. The lawn looks shabby. Tyler needs a ride to soccer practice at 4. Never please, never thank you, just expectations that I'd handle whatever needed handling. Bradley started working longer hours, picking up overtime and side jobs. The extra money was nice, but it meant he was gone from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. most days. That left me alone with Stephanie's increasingly demanding attitude and her growing resentment of my presence in what she'd started calling her house. I heard her on the phone with her sister one afternoon while I was fixing a leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom. "It's like having a really expensive roommate who doesn't pay rent," she was saying. "I mean, he contributes to the mortgage, but he's always here, always underfoot. And the kids listen to him more than they listen to me sometimes." I stopped what I was doing and listened. No, Bradley won't say anything. You know how he is with confrontation. But honestly, Carol, I'm starting to think this arrangement has run its course. Harold's got enough money saved up from the house sale. He could get a nice little apartment somewhere, maybe one of those senior communities. It would probably be better for him anyway, a senior community, at 58 years old, because I was inconvenient. That's when I started paying closer attention to the conversations happening around me. Amazing how invisible you become when people decide you don't matter. They'd talk about me like I wasn't there. Plan around me like I was a piece of furniture that might need moving. I also started documenting everything more carefully. The composition notebook became my lifeline. Every contribution, every expense, every repair. The new roof that Stephanie insisted we needed after a minor leak, $8,500. The kitchen renovation that would add value to the property, $12,000. The new HVAC system when the old one started making noise, $6,200. 3 years of contributions totaled $89,000, nearly everything I'd gotten from selling Linda's and my ranch. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was watching my relationship with Tyler and Ashley slowly erode. Stephanie had started scheduling their activities during times when I was usually available. Baseball practice moved to weekends when I typically worked in the garage. Ashley's dance classes conflicted with our traditional afternoon story time. Grandpa's busy became Stephanie's standard response when they asked for me. Grandpa needs his rest. Grandpa has other things to do. I was being systematically isolated from the people I loved most in the house I'd helped pay for. The breaking point came on that Thursday in March. I knew something was up when Stephanie came downstairs practically glowing. She'd been interviewing for a promotion for months, and from her expression I could tell she'd gotten good news. I got it. She announced to the breakfast table. Regional Marketing Director, youngest person in company history to reach that level. Bradley swept her up in celebration. Tyler and Ashley cheered because kids love celebrating, even when they don't understand what they're celebrating. I was at the stove making my usual breakfast contribution, pancakes that everyone took for granted. "Congratulations, Stephanie," I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish her professional failure. That's quite an achievement. She barely acknowledged me. Just a quick thanks, Harold, before turning back to Bradley. Then came the planning. Dinner at Morton's Steakhouse, the fancy place downtown where steaks cost $50 and appetizers cost what I used to spend on groceries for a week. The guest list kept growing. Stephanie's parents driving down from Cleveland, her sister and brother-in-law, Bradley's cousin Jerry and his wife, even some of Stephanie's work friends. I listened to the planning, assuming I'd be included. After all, I was family. I'd been living there for 3 years, helping raise the kids, contributing to every mortgage payment. Of course I'd be part of the celebration. What time should I be ready? I asked during a break in the conversation. Stephanie looked at me like I'd suggested setting the house on fire. The silence stretched uncomfortably before she finally spoke. "Oh, Harold, this is really more of an intimate family celebration. You understand. Plus, someone should stay with the house. Can't just leave it empty with all our valuables." The words hit like a physical blow. Bradley said nothing. My son, the boy I'd raised from diapers, taught to ride a bike, walked through every triumph and failure of his life. He just sat there examining his coffee cup like it held the secrets of the universe. "I see, I managed. Of course, someone should watch the house." They left at 6:30 that evening. Stephanie changed outfits 3 times before settling on a red dress that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Tyler and Ashley were dressed in their Sunday best, excited about eating at the fancy restaurant with the cloth napkins. Bradley hesitated at the door. "Don't wait up, Dad. We might be late." He couldn't meet my eyes when he said it. I spent that evening doing what I'd been doing for 3 years, maintaining their house, washing their dishes, folding their laundry. The silence was deafening. Every tick of the clock reminded me that somewhere across town, my family was celebrating without me. That's when I opened Instagram and watched my humiliation unfold in real time, photo after photo of their celebration. Stephanie radiant with success, Bradley proud and supportive, Tyler and Ashley having the time of their lives. Extended family I'd known for years, all gathered to honor this achievement. 13 people at that table, and not one of them had thought I belonged there. The text about the trash came at 9:47 p.m., just as I was trying to lose myself in fixing Tyler's bike chain, the final insult in a day full of them. But as I sat there in my workshop, surrounded by tools that had built houses and fixed 1,000 problems, I realized something important. I wasn't just angry. I was done. Done being invisible, done being taken for granted, done paying for the privilege of being treated like hired help in my own house because it was my house. Legally, completely, utterly mine. And it was time they learned that. The deed was in my toolbox, wrapped in plastic behind my collection of socket wrenches. I'd put it there when we moved in, meaning to transfer it to Bradley's name eventually. Somehow, eventually never came. Between his work schedule and my own reluctance to completely give up the last piece of security I had, the paperwork never got filed. Now I understood why some deeper part of me had been stalling, the same instinct that had kept me documenting every expense, every contribution, every slight. The construction worker's survival instinct that said always keep your receipts and never sign anything until you've read it twice. That Friday morning, I made the calls that would change everything. First was Gerald Coleman, my old union rep who'd become a real estate attorney after retiring from the trades. "Jerry, I need to see you today. It's about my living situation." "Everything okay, Harold? You sound different. I'm about to be a lot different. Can you see me this afternoon?" Second call was to Dorothy Williams, my neighbor from the ranch days. She'd moved to a senior community after her husband passed, but she'd been telling me for months about a garage apartment above her daughter's house that they couldn't seem to rent. "Dot, remember that apartment you mentioned? Is it still available?" "Of course, honey. But what's going on? You sound upset." "I'm not upset, Dot. I'm awake, finally." The meeting with Jerry was eye-opening. I brought everything, the deed, the composition notebook with 3 years of documented expenses, bank statements showing every mortgage contribution. "Harold, this is extraordinary," he said, spreading the papers across his conference table. "You own this house completely? They've been living in your property for 3 years. I know, but they don't know. How is that possible? Because they assumed I'd transferred the deed. They assumed I was just helping out with expenses. They assumed I was grateful for the privilege of living with them." Jerry calculated quickly. "You've invested $89,000 in a property that's increased in value to roughly $385,000. You could evict them tomorrow and sell the house." "I don't want to destroy them, Jerry. I want them to understand what they almost lost. That's when we crafted the plan, not destruction, but education. I spent the weekend packing, not everything, just what mattered most. Linda's photos, my important papers, clothes for a week. I took my time, making sure I wasn't acting out of anger, but out of careful consideration. The letter I left on Bradley's pillow was the hardest thing I'd ever written. "Son, for 3 years I've lived in this house like a boarder who overstayed his welcome. I've contributed $89,000 to your mortgage and household expenses while being treated like hired help by your wife and ignored by you when she disrespects me. Last night, while you celebrated Stephanie's success with everyone, except the man who made your celebration possible, I made a decision. I'm done being invisible in my own house. Check the nightstand. There are documents there that will explain why we're meeting with lawyers on Monday. I've loved you your whole life, Bradley, but love doesn't mean letting you forget that respect isn't optional. Dad, on the nightstand, I left a copy of the property deed and a summary of every dollar I'd invested. At the bottom of the page, I'd written, "This house belongs to Harold Patterson. It always has. I was at Dorothy's daughter's place by the time they came home from their celebration." My phone started buzzing around 11:30 p.m., but I'd turned off notifications for Bradley and Stephanie's numbers. They could stew until Monday. The emergency messages started Saturday morning. Bradley called 17 times. The voicemails progressed from confused to panicked to desperate. "Dad, please call me back. We didn't know about the deed. How were we supposed to know, Dad? This is crazy. You can't just leave. We're family, Dad, please. The kids are asking where you are. They don't understand." Stephanie's messages were different. First angry. "Harold, this is ridiculous. You can't abandon your family over hurt feelings." Then calculating. "We need to discuss this like rational adults. There has to be a solution that works for everyone." Finally scared. "Harold, please. I know I haven't been. I know things haven't been perfect, but we can work this out." The meeting Monday morning was at Jerry's office downtown. I arrived early and waited. Bradley came alone, looking like he'd aged 5 years and 4 days. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from Friday.
"Dad," he said, and his voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sit down, son. We need to talk." Jerry laid out the legal reality. I owned the house completely.
I'd invested $89,000 over 3 years. They had no legal claim to the property and could be evicted with 30 days' notice. But I said, I'm not interested in destroying you. I'm interested in fairness. The proposal was simple. Bradley could buy 40% of the house for $45,000, money he could borrow against his tools and truck. I'd keep 60% and rent my portion to tenants of my choosing. They'd share common areas and learn what it felt like to accommodate people they didn't choose. You want us to live with strangers? Bradley asked. I want you to understand what I went through. I want you to know how it feels to share your space with people who might not appreciate you. There was more monthly family dinners where I'd be treated as honored guest, not kitchen help. A formal apology from Stephanie in front of Tyler and Ashley, and counseling just Bradley and me to rebuild what we'd lost. What about Stephanie? He asked. What about her? This is between you and me, son. About whether you want to be my son or her errand boy. Bradley broke down completely. I want to be your son, Dad. I miss being your son. That's when I knew we could fix this. The tenants I chose were perfect. Martin Stevens, a widowed carpenter with a 15-year-old son. Good people who'd treat the house with respect and give Stephanie a taste of sharing her precious space. 6 months later, everything had changed. Stephanie had learned to say please and thank you. She'd learned that shared spaces require mutual respect. Most importantly, she'd learned that the man she'd treated like hired help was the reason she had a house to share at all. A year later, I'm sitting in my apartment downtown, having Sunday dinner with Tyler and Ashley while Bradley grills burgers on my little patio. Stephanie sends me photos of the kids' school events and includes me in holiday planning. She calls me Harold now, not Grandpa or Hal, the best part. Tyler and Ashley understand now that respect isn't optional in families, that their grandfather isn't someone to be pushed aside, and that family means everyone matters. I still have that text about taking out the trash. I keep it as a reminder of who I used to be and who I'll never be again, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach people what they stand to lose. And sometimes walking away is the only way to show them what you're really worth. The only trash that needed taking out wasn't in the garbage can, it was the way they treated me, and I took care of that just fine. Respect isn't something you earn once and keep forever. It's something you give and receive every single day, and when it stops flowing both ways, it's time to remind people what they stand to lose.